They discovered a shocking prophecy from Ezekiel that foretells an unimaginable conflict. Few knew what truly happened that night in the ancient city of Jerusalem. A hushed whisper circulated among the townspeople, fueled by the flickering flames of the torches illuminating the dark streets. What was it that the prophet saw? What truth lay buried in the dusty scrolls? As the moon cast eerie shadows over the temple, a small group of scholars gathered in secret. Their eyes glinted with a mix of fear and anticipation. They were poring over the sacred texts, desperate to decode the disturbing verses that hinted at chaos to come. Ezekiel's words danced around them like ghosts, each syllable heavy with foreboding. He spoke of wheels within wheels, beings of strange and terrible form, and a darkness that would cover the earth. Each line trembled with ominous energy. The air was thick with tension, every word echoing the visions that had haunted Ezekiel's dreams. Warnings from ancient times seemed almost alive. Someone gasped, pointing to a passage. The land will tremble. Nations will rise against nations. Chills ran down spines as eyes widened in disbelief. Could it be that Jerusalem, once a haven, would face ruin? The walls felt like they were closing in, and the night outside whispered secrets of impending doom. With the distant rumble of thunder, an unsettling silence fell upon the group. They exchanged frantic looks. How could such a prophecy affect their lives so readily? A conflict unlike any seen before. It stirred a primal fear within them. Whispers of enemies lurking beyond the mountains echoed in their minds. It was as if a storm was brewing not only in the skies but in the hearts of men. Suddenly, a loud bang shattered the silence. The door swung open, letting in a gust of wind that snuffed out the candles. Darkness swallowed the room. Panic surged. What was that? Someone gasped. Fear echoed in their hearts. Were they truly safe? Or were they being watched by unseen forces? The tension of the unknown weighed heavy, like a thick fog as they fumbled to relight the candles. A voice pierced through the gloom. What if Ezekiel's prophecy isn't just a warning, but a call to action? The words hung in the air, electrifying everyone present. Hope swirled amidst the dread. If they could decipher the messages right, perhaps they could change the course of their fate. But who would believe them? And more importantly, could they rise to face what lay ahead? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the heavy stillness that followed the disturbance, the flickering flames of the relit candles spilled light across the scholars' worried faces. The voice that had stirred them from their paralysis belonged to Asher, a man known for his quiet wisdom and resolute spirit. He stood slightly apart from the group, his brow furrowed in thought. What do you mean? Someone asked, their voice trembling with uncertainty. A call to action against what? Shadows? Monsters? We cannot fight against prophecies. Asher took a step closer, his shadow elongated by the candlelight. But what if the prophecy warns us not just to cower in fear, but to rally as one? Ezekiel spoke of the fate of our city, yes, but he also spoke of hope. Hope amidst despair. Is that not worth seeking? The others exchanged glances, contemplating the challenge posed by his words. Perhaps they had become so consumed by dread that they had forgotten the faith woven into the very fabric of their beliefs. Deep down, each of them yearned for something beyond mere survival. Look, Asher continued, Ezekiel's visions. They are not just spectacles. They are lessons, reminders of what lies in the hearts of men. We must seek out the truth in his words and work together to shift the balance towards redemption rather than destruction. The names of nearby tribes plagued their fears, and murmurs of distrust colored their conversations. Was it even possible to unite under the threat of chaos? Could enemies be turned into allies in the face of a common darkness? In truth, Had there ever been such an act of faith among them? What if we share our findings with the leaders? Suggested another scholar, Miriam, clutching the scroll with trembling hands. Perhaps if we join our knowledge and rally the people, we can prepare for what is foretold. They need to know. A bold idea, Asher replied, contemplation knitting his brow. But it comes with risks. Will they listen? Or will they dismiss us as madmen chasing shadows? Upon hearing this, a heavy silence enveloped them once more, thick with doubts. The images of Ezekiel's wheels, creatures of fire and spirit, returned to each mind, their meaning perpetually elusive. The darkness it conjured felt tangible, almost alive. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the open door once more, rustling the scrolls. As if answering unspoken fears, the group felt an inexplicable chill run through their ranks. What else was waiting for them, lurking beyond the walls? Would they have the strength to confront it? With a resolve that belied their fears, they gathered together, whispering fervent prayers for wisdom and courage, casting shadows of doubt aside. In the depths of their hearts flickered a faint light of hope. What if unifying against the coming darkness ignited an even greater truth, something they had yet to grasp? As the candles flickered low and the night outside deepened, a question pierced the air, resonating with the uncertainty lying heavy in their minds. Was it better to confront fate head-on, or to remain mere observers, hoping for deliverance without action? As the flickering candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, the scholars felt a deepening weight around them, both from the gravity of their task and the revelations just whispered into the air. Asher, whose voice had stirred them into a semblance of unity, turned his gaze toward the empty stretch of night beyond the open door, his heart heavy with an unnameable burden. What if, he mused aloud, almost to himself, the prophecy holds a key we have overlooked. Perhaps the darkness is but a consequence of our own division. Miriam straightened, her curiosity piqued. A consequence? You mean, could our quarrels with our brothers and sisters lead us towards the very fate we fear? What if the monsters we dread are reflections of our own hearts? Asher nodded slowly, recognizing the weight of her words. Indeed, Ezekiel speaks of the valley of dry bones, and in that vision, what was once lifeless became renewed. It indicates that transformation is possible, but only through unity. A wave of unease swept through the group, for they understood that unity demanded humility, and humility was often a scarce commodity when pride thrived. Thoughts of their past grievances and feuds arose unbidden in their minds. Could they truly forgive and embrace those they had long viewed with suspicion? What about the tribes? Another voice broke through their reverie, laced with apprehension. They may see this as an opportunity to further their own agendas. Perhaps, Asher replied thoughtfully, but what if we extend an olive branch? If we present ourselves not as conquerors but as seekers of truth, we may find common ground they, too, yearn for. Uncertainty rippled through the group again. It was uncharted territory they contemplated. The fear of rejection was palpable, yet a deeper yearning stirred within them, a longing for connection in a fractured world. But how do we start? Miriam pressed, her earnestness evident in her eyes. We have our own followers, and they may not understand. We could be seen as betraying our kin by suggesting to lift up those perceived as adversaries. Here, then, lies our greatest test of faith. Asher responded, the intensity in his gaze igniting a spark within them. We must invite our leaders first, share the scrolls, and seek counsel in wisdom. If they see our resolve and sincerity, the truth may resonate with them as it does with us. As whispers of what-ifs and maybes flowed among them, the air became thick with anticipation. It felt as though the candlelight flickering around them was echoing the hearts igniting with a shared hope. In the depths of that chamber, the reality of impending conflict loomed heavy, but so too did a burgeoning possibility of reconciliation. They were travelers at a crossroads, standing on the edge of faith and fear, with the battle within them mirrored by the darkness threatening from without. As we prepare to share our findings, let us remember, Asher urged, placing his hands upon the table, that our intention is not simply to warn against disaster, but to inspire a movement that echoes through the ages. Our faith must give birth to action, As the candle flames flickered gently, casting moments of light into the nooks of their gathering, each scholar felt the weight of their choice, suspended between fear and faith. Together, they prayed again, invoking divine guidance for what was to come. In that shared silence, a new question unfurled in the corners of their minds, an unresolved longing for understanding. In seeking unity, how could they muster the courage to confront their past adversities while embracing the unknown future? The air hummed softly with the remnants of their prayers as the candlelight continued to flicker erratically, drawing the shadows ever closer. Each scholar felt the heaviness of expectation settle upon their shoulders. As they opened their scrolls anew, the words etched in ancient script spoke of a destiny that lingered just out of reach, waiting to be grasped. Miriam called out one scholar, a younger man named Eli, with a tone laced with apprehension. What if the bones in Ezekiel's vision do not merely point to renewal but also caution us about the folly of our ways? What if the battle we dread is not just external but also within ourselves? Miriam pondered this, her brow furrowed in contemplation. I have often wondered why the vision comes to Ezekiel at all. Could it not be that his experience in the valley signifies our own despair? The bones represent our broken relationships, scattered not only in the valley but among our people. Asher listened intently, sensing the ripples of their shared insight intertwining, like a tapestry around their hearts. So, then, his call to breathe life into those bones might be our mandate. The breath brings together what was divided. We must become the wind that stirs them. A silence enveloped them, and each scholar looked around at the faces that reflected the weight of their thoughts. They recognized the daunting path that lay ahead, fraught with challenges that echoed the struggles of the past. But do we even know how to initiate such a resurrection? Eli asked, his voice trembling slightly. After generations of enmity, can hope take root in the soil of resentment? What if they do not hear us? True restoration, Asher began, may require a willingness to confront our unyielding fears. We must walk beside those we once considered enemies. Genuine transformation often follows suffering, but only if it is kept in the garments of humility. The flickering flames cast a warm glow across their weary faces, though doubt still whispered like a breeze through the cracks in their resolve. And how shall we bear our own burdens of mistrust? Miriam pressed, searching for certainty in their unfolding narrative. How can we behold the light in our brothers and sisters while struggling with our shadows? Asher felt the weight of her questions. Perhaps, he murmured softly, the first step is to embrace vulnerability. We could gather in open spaces, honest about our fears and intentions. True dialogue begins with listening. We cannot be divided by words we do not dare to speak. Then it must start here, within this room, Eli suggested tentatively. Let us practice unity among ourselves. If we cannot first love one another, how can we extend love to others? With these words, a profound stillness washed over them. They realized that the distance they felt from one another mirrored the divide in their communities. The challenge they faced demanded a model of humility and mutual respect, a prelude to the greater work that awaited beyond their chamber. What if we encounter resistance? One voice finally broke the silence, dark clouds of uncertainty weaving through their conversation once more. What if our olive branch is met with arrows instead of open hearts? Eli spoke up once more. Maybe it is in facing such resistance that we will witness the essence of true faith. Just as Ezekiel stood in the valley confronting desolation, we, too, will stand amidst the adversity and raise our eyes to the heavens for strength. With that, their hearts rallied to a common purpose, forging an unlikely alliance. Together they began crafting a plan that wove threads of truth, understanding, and reconciliation. They would share their insights, speak of both dread and hope, facing the reality of their past to unveil a brighter future. As the night deepened outside, the candles began to dwindle, yet the ideas igniting their spirits became a blazing fire within them. Each of them carried that newfound determination, but just as quickly as inspiration can spark, a fresh wave of doubt crept in. What if their voices were too small amidst the clamor of division? Reflectively, Miriam asked the room, when our words carry the hopes of many, how do we ensure they reach the ears willing to hear? How can we turn mere intentions into tangible actions that lead us closer to the unity we seek? As dawn approached, the glow of the embers dwindled, yet the flame of their shared resolve flickered stubbornly in the wake of uncertainty. The scholars found themselves enveloped in the dawn's soft light, casting thoughtful shadows on their plans. The scrolls lay scattered before them, and they knew the hour bound by both anticipation and trepidation was at hand. Eli broke the morning's silence, his voice steady despite the unease that still gripped him. We have our intentions, yet can we see the paths laid before us clearly? Ezekiel's prophecy speaks of dry bones, but it also unveils a rift, a profound separation among us. What if this conflict is not only external but feeds from our internal strife? His eyes bore the weight of inquiry as he pondered the ramifications of their exploration. Miriam nodded, her mind weaving elements from their discussions together. Every prophecy holds not just promise but also peril. When God commanded Ezekiel to prophesy, he had to confront that which was broken. To breathe life into despair requires us first to identify the depths of despair within our souls. Asher leaned forward, a frown knitting his brow. To do this, do we then become the harbingers of truth, standing before those who oppose us? We must be willing to expose our own faults, the very faults that may have sown discord among our communities. Are we ready to bear such a burden? Eli's heart raced at the thought. To share our vulnerabilities with others, how can we expect them to listen when our own voices quaver in the face of our greatest fears? In that moment, Miriam spoke with a clarity that resonated deep within their hearts. It is precisely within that space of quivering vulnerability that true connection happens. If we approach with authenticity, it may open hearts that have long remained closed. Might we find, in our common struggle, the divine bridge towards unity? As the sun climbed higher in the sky, lighting the dusty room, the scholars began to contemplate how to wield the fragile threads of hope spun from their revelations. The Valley of Bones might represent the desolation they felt, but it also symbolized something profoundly transformative, a call to acknowledge their scars, and a discovery that healing could only flow from understanding. Should we not always remember, Eli spoke aloud, that each of us carries a piece of the divine image within us? If the brokenness leads us to deeper empathy, it can reshape our very mission. Yet, from the back of the room, a skeptical voice arose. What of those who reject this vision? We speak of resurrection, but what if the message of hope falls on deaf ears? What if we stand as witnesses yet find no willingness to engage? Asher raised his hand in a calming gesture. Perhaps that is part of the lesson. The vision Ezekiel experienced mandated an act of faith, even in the face of doubt. To call forth life in a valley of lifelessness requires courage, a courage that speaks not only of words but also of actions. Our faith must manifest in the willingness to extend our message, regardless of the outcomes. What if we dwindle in the shadows of doubt, tethered by fear? Miriam's voice held an foreboding inflection. What if the conflict that Ezekiel foresaw unfolds as an unyielding battle between hope and despair? Eli grasped the weight of her words. We have to remember that conflict does not merely dwell in battlefields. It exists within our hearts too. Each step we take could incite a deeper strife or pave a new way toward understanding. As dawn gave way to a clearer day, the scholars convened once more to channel their concerns into action. They knew they must venture into the communities, yet trepidation soaked their resolve. Was it enough to simply hope for change? Were their spirits buoyed by a faith sturdy enough to endure potential fallout? Before they dispersed, Miriam summoned her courage. If we center our spirits on humility and approach others through the lens of shared suffering, might that illuminate paths toward redemption? As they left the chamber, the weight of their mission loomed heavier, yet filled with anticipation for what lies beyond. The flicker of hope remained lodged in their hearts, the understanding of their call yet to unfold. What lay ahead was an unsettling query. In the trembling moments between fear and faith, can the prophecy of renewal truly blossom amid a sending storm? How deeply are our hearts prepared to rise to the challenge? As the scholars stepped out into the sunlit streets, the vibrancy of life around them contrasted sharply with the somber reflections of their earlier conversation. The villagers bustled to and fro, oblivious to the weight of prophecy that lingered on the scholars' shoulders. Each face they passed bore stories etched in joy and sorrow, a living testament to the very struggle they sought to address. Eli, Miriam, and Asher found themselves lingering at the edge of a crowded marketplace, where the scent of baked bread wafted through the air, mingling with the cries of merchants selling their goods. It was in this place of life and commerce that the scholars glimpsed the tensile threads they aspired to weave, an intricate tapestry of lives entwined in both joy and despair. Asher turned to his companions. Even here, in this bustling heart of our community, can we discern the bones that lie beneath? The unspoken wounds that lead to division? His gaze swept over a group of young men arguing over a trivial matter, their voices rising above the hum of transactions. Miriam watched intently, her eyes narrowing. Conflict often becomes a veil that shrouds deeper hurts. What might these men truly be facing beneath their bravado? If we could look past their anger, would we find children of God, each grappling with their own fears? Eli considered her words. Perhaps each altercation reflects a cry for recognition, a silent call to heal those fractures. With every rift we see, might we not be summoned to listen, to witness those dry bones yearning for life? Drawing courage from the moment, Miriam stepped toward the quarreling young men. "Brothers," she called, her voice steady yet gentle. "In a world where conflict rises, what if we dared to listen instead of respond? Is there a deeper truth behind your words?" The men halted, their expressions shifting from anger to confusion. As they exchanged wary glances, a tremor of realization flitted across their faces. What indeed lay beneath their quarrel? The crowd around them began to fade into the background, and in that stillness, a fragile space opened, inviting reflection. One of the young men, his brow furrowed, broke the silence. "What do you know of our burdens, lady? You know nothing of our struggles, our lives." Miriam took a step closer, her eyes softening. "You are right. I do not know. But perhaps I can listen, and in that listening, we can discover our shared humanity." Eli felt a stirring inside him, a warmth igniting. This is what the prophecy calls us to. A willingness to meet one another not through misunderstanding but through the shared experience of loss and hope. What if the battle we fight is not against each other, but against the isolation that binds us? The second young man, uncharacteristically quiet, shifted his gaze downward, revealing a glimpse of the turmoil within. "It's not just this argument. It's life. We feel lost, invisible. Fighting feels like all we have left." As the words fell heavy in the air, Eli moved closer. "Then let us reach out a hand, and together, uncover what lies beneath the conflict. You may feel like bones in a dry valley, but even dry bones can come together and find new life." The entire marketplace seemed to draw breath. The scattered murmurs faded as others turned their focus toward the unexpected scene unfolding. In that moment, an unseen thread began weaving itself, connecting the hearts in that moment of vulnerability. Miriam sensed a shift unfolding, her heart swelling with hope. In recognizing our struggles, perhaps we can heal one another. Is this the purpose of our calling? To give voice to the silent and unite in the face of despair? As the tension softened, Eli looked to his companions, pondering how this small interaction mirrored the larger struggle they faced. What if each engagement we have in our communities could inspire others? Each conversation could be a step towards lowering barriers. But are we ready for the backlash? Is the risk of rejection one we are truly prepared to bear? As they stood there, caught between hope and uncertainty, the scholars felt the weight of their mission settle deeply upon them. The possibility of transformation shimmered ahead, yet shadows of fear lingered just out of reach. With each heartbeat, questions pressed in on them. Are the paths to redemption sown from our willingness to confront our fears together? What if the very act of reaching out could change the fabric of conflict itself? In this poignant moment, they found themselves standing on the threshold of a profound mystery. How can the fragments of our discontent be transformed into a call for unity amid chaos? As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting hues of gold and orange over the market square, a silence spread like a gentle blanket among the villagers. For the first time, The cacophony of voices receded, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird as Miriam, Eli, and Asher stood at the crossroads of a momentous choice. The fragile space created between the scholars and the young men pulsed with unspoken possibilities, like a divine hand poised over the delicate stitches of fate. The first young man, who had voiced his anger, shifted his weight and rubbed the back of his neck, grappling with his vulnerability. What do we do now? We've argued so long. It feels impossible to even start listening, he admitted, his voice thick with conflict and unspent tears. Miriam felt a surge of understanding wash over her. Maybe the first step is to acknowledge that listening doesn't mean we give up our own truths. It means we strengthen our individual stories by weaving them into a larger tapestry, she gently suggested, inviting them into a space where discord could become dialogue. Asher, recovering from his astonishment at the turn of events, spoke up. Remember the prophecy we spoke of? Ezekiel spoke to a valley of dry bones and called them to rise. What if we, too, are in that valley trembling with the fear of transgression and the weight of our burdens? His eyes glimmered with newfound determination and vision. Can these bones live? Eli murmured to himself, recalling the haunting words of the prophet. The valley had been filled with the remnants of despair and hopelessness, but Ezekiel was called to breathe life into them anew. What if we are those bones? Each of us carries parts of a dream or perhaps a nightmare waiting for the breath of unity to awaken us. What does it take to move from this moment into something greater? This moment of connection resonated in the marketplace, and the onlookers began to lean in, intrigued. The blend of woven stories expanded the space further, encompassing the multitude of hearts within the crowd. The second young man, emboldened by the sincerity of the scholars, addressed the inner turmoil that had troubled him for too long. I feel a weight to be strong, but inside I feel like I'm breaking. Every fight just masks the fear that I won't matter. His admission echoed in the silence, and Miriam sensed that something sacred was unfurling a shared burden of existence. Eli nodded with compassion. What if your struggle is a thread that connects you to others just like you? In this moment, we can weave unity, embrace our vulnerabilities, and recognize that the hard path towards reconciliation is an extension of each other as strength. The conflict foretold by Ezekiel doesn't have to be our endpoint. It can lead us to something miraculous if we allow it. As if lit by a spark of divine inspiration, Miriam gently reached out to both young men. Will you join us? Will you walk through this valley not as adversaries but as brothers, willing to rise together? We may not have all the answers now, but in each step we take toward understanding, we embody the prophecy that was spoken, bones coming together to form a living body. Suddenly, the air thickened with expectation. Eyes gazed steadily at the young men, each moment stretching into a reflection of choice. They stood at a precipice ready to confront not only their fears and doubts, but also the very nature of their existence and purpose as part of a larger community. As the young men exchanged glances, the spark of possibility flickered anew. In a world steeped in conflict, could they embrace this opportunity for change, even in the face of fear and rejection? The sun slipped below the horizon, plunging them into twilight. Shadows of uncertainty crept in, mingling with the hope that had been unearthed. Would their willingness to listen lead them to standing united? Or would they remain fractured within the very walls they sought to dismantle? In this moment, as a new sense of purpose began to form between them, an urgent question loomed. Could the very act of reconciliation be the key to unlocking the prophecy's mystery and transforming what lies ahead? As the last rays of sunlight faded into twilight, an ethereal hush enveloped the market square. The villagers, their breath held in collective anticipation, sensed an unseen shift within the air, a tremor of hope, a whisper of change that beckoned from the shadows. It was in this cocoon of silence that an aged man emerged from the gathering crowd. His beard, silvered and weathered by years of wisdom, hinted at a life steeped not only in knowledge, but in experience of trials and tribulations that stretched far beyond the present moment. Children of the valley, the elder's voice, though soft, carried the weight of ages. Have you not heard the echoes of prophecy that linger among us like the dawn waiting to break? His luminous eyes sparkled with a mix of sorrow and joy, as if he harbored secrets the world had yet to unfold. Miriam, her heart racing with curiosity, stepped forward. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a fragile bridge seeking understanding. "What echoes do you carry with you, and how do they speak to us now?" The elder looked down, his gaze far away. Ezekiel spoke of dry bones, yes, but he also spoke of a great battle, a conflict that pits brother against brother. A struggle not merely of flesh and blood but of spirit and soul. It is the struggle to awaken from apathy, to face our fears, and to climb from the depths of despair. He paused, noticing the young men's faces taut with questions. "Do you believe yourself free from the shackles of past grievances? Or are you forgers of a new destiny, absent the burdens that weigh upon us? You stand at the brink of revelation. Will you allow the shadows of your hearts to rule, or will you seek the light?" Asher inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of his own questions pressing against his chest. What if the conflict foretold by Ezekiel is not among us but within each of us? How naive we have been to think that the valley would only be filled with bones of the fallen. It may still harbor the dust of living souls, fighting to breathe life into their dreams. What if the true battle lies in unearthing those dreams from the depths? The elder's expression softened, and he nodded. Indeed, the battle lies not in a place but in the heart. A heart that cowers from vulnerability is the true valley, a chasm far deeper than any physical one. Are you prepared to face the truth that lives within you and among you? Miriam's heart pulsed with recognition, stirring her resolve. If the prophecy speaks of a conflict, then it also holds the key to redemption, does it not? Can we reframe it as the crucible for transformation, a chance to seek healing? The elder's eyes shone with a light that suggested his words were already alive. A lofty aspiration, indeed. But know this, without the courage to confront what is, there can be no door to what could be. Every choice you make echoes into eternity, shaping the very marrow of your people. Each step into the fray could birth a new beginning, or entrench you deeper into discord. The crowd leaned closer, drawn to the intensity of the elder's charge. A ripple of contemplation spread through the assembly, each villager reflecting on their own role within this intricate tapestry of existence. As the air thickened with their shared ambivalence, they became aware of the invisible threads connecting them, all a fabric woven from shared dreams and fears, teetering on the precipice of unity or further disarray. "What if," whispered the first young man now, his voice trembling, "the prophecy itself is a challenge for us to play our part in reshaping our destiny? Can our collective suffering and joy awaken the dry bones of our community into life, rather than merely accepting a foreboding outcome?" The elder smiled gently, his eyes glistening with pride at this emerging realization. In seeking to understand the depths of your hearts and sharing that understanding, you hold the potential to breathe new life into the world around you. The spirit of prophecy lies not only in foretelling but in igniting the fire within each of you to stand for the truth of your stories. But are you ready to face not just your own struggles but also the struggles of those who walk beside you, and embrace the confrontation that lies ahead? As silence wrapped around them like a sacred mantle, a single thread of anticipation pulsed through the crowd. The weight of the elder's words left an indelible mark, urging everyone to wrestle with the timeless question that loomed as dusk descended. In a world so fractured by conflict, can we find the courage to unite our voices, breaking free from despair to create a narrative woven from hope and resilience? The night deepened, the stars beginning to twinkle like distant sentinels watching over the village below. A strange energy lingered in the air as the villagers, still entranced by the elder's words, felt the weight of their shared journey coalesce into a silent resolve. As the stillness enveloped them, it became clear that this moment was a catalyst, a turning point where the threads of their individual lives could be woven into a greater tapestry. Miriam contemplated the elder's challenge, her thoughts racing. If we forge ahead as one, united in our struggles, what becomes of the resentment that has plagued our hearts? She glanced at Asher, whose expression bore the marks of long-held grievances. Can we truly set aside our differences? Asher met her gaze, a fleeting flicker of doubt crossing his face. While the vision of unity is noble, the reality is fraught with the very complexities that tear us apart. What if those past grievances cut too deep? Can wounds that run so profoundly ever be healed merely through the strength of hope? The elder raised a hand to silence the murmurs, his voice steady and unyielding. The path to unity is indeed scattered with the shards of pain. But pain can be a teacher if we allow it, can guide you through the darkness, leading to understanding and ultimately, to forgiveness. Think of the fragmented bones Ezekiel witnessed. They were not mere remnants of the fallen, but an invitation to envision how life could bloom from death, how a valley of bones could unite to form a living, breathing body. Still, another villager interjected, her voice thick with emotion. What if the bones refuse to join? What if they remain scattered, serving only as a reminder of a history we cannot change? How do we compel a collective resurrection from the past? The elder's eyes shone with compassion. The choice to rise from the ashes lies not in the bones themselves, but in the hearts of those who stand before them. The act of gathering is a testament to your will, your desire for renewal. Even the greatest oak begins as a mere acorn, rooted in soil nourished by decay. It is through shared vulnerability that you fortify your strength. As the flickering lanterns danced with the night breeze, the villagers found themselves captivated by a vision slowly forming among them. It was one where grief could transmute into resilience, where pain could birth compassion. The elder's words ignited a flicker of hope that began to push through the shadows of their collective doubt. Miriam stood taller, emboldened by the dialogue that unfolded. If each of us holds a piece of the prophetic puzzle, then shouldn't we labor not only for ourselves but for the entire community? We must echo the call of the spirit within us, creating bridges over the discord that threatens to drown us. But a voice quivered from the surrounding darkness. What if the power of our past is too great? Can we truly change the course of our destiny? How can we trust in the possibility of healing when the scars are still visible? The elder's gaze turned resolute, drawing all eyes to him once more. Trust is the first step into the valley of reconciliation. A fierce, yet gentle courage is required, the courage to confront the cumbersome shadows of yesterday and to stand firm in the light of possibility, even when the journey feels insurmountable. What is faith if not the act of believing in that which we cannot see? As the kindling of understanding spread through the crowd, an unspoken agreement began to blossom amongst them. Yet as they contemplated this daunting task, questions lingered in the air like the scent of impending rain, heavy with promise but ripe with uncertainty. How do we unify these disparate pieces of ourselves? And in what ways can we cultivate our individual truths while weaving them into the inextricable fabric of community? Is it enough to dream of harmony, or must we deliberate deeply on the discord that exists within? These reflections echoed through the minds of the villagers, stirring their spirits. As darkness settled around them and the stars shone brightly above, they were left with a profound inquiry resting on their hearts. In our quest to foster unity, will we dare to embrace the full spectrum of our shared humanity, confronting the shadows that lie within, and in doing so, perhaps, discover the true power of resurrection? In the early hours of dawn, a new light streaked across Jerusalem, casting brilliant hues of gold that kissed the stone walls and washed over the valley where the villagers gathered. It was a moment of reckoning, one that held the weight of prophecy amidst the lingering fears that had bound them for so long. The hushed energy from the prior evening's revelations still thrummed in their hearts, and as the sun rose, their resolve commenced to stir. Miriam, Eli, and Asher stood at the forefront, their spirits ignited by the transformative dialogue that had unfolded at the marketplace, emboldened by an uncharted purpose. Beneath the sprawling trees that offered the first sighs of warmth, they gathered people from all walks of life, men and women, young and old, each weary from the burdens of separation and distrust. As the crowd coalesced, an electric anticipation simmered in the air, pushing away the shadows of doubt. The elders stepped forward first, bearing the scars of countless struggles yet filled with wisdom that mirrored the light emerging from the horizon. Asher's voice cut through the atmosphere with clarity and conviction. Here, before our very eyes, is a tapestry woven not just from our individual stories, but from our collective yearnings. The prophecy of Ezekiel speaks not only of conflict. It implores us to unify, to rise together as one body, flesh and spirit intertwining in hope. Miriam followed suit, raising her arms toward the heavens. In this gathering, we breathe life into the vision Ezekiel beheld. Together, we hold the power to resurrect our fractured bones not with swords or shields, but through understanding and compassion. Every anguished cry that has echoed in our hearts is an invitation to connect, not divide. Resonance grew in the crowd. Murmurs of agreement filled the atmosphere like a sweet melody. Eli stepped close to the edge of the gathering, his eyes sparkling with urgency. If we enlist each voice, if we reveal our vulnerabilities, we lay bare the roots of our discontent, stitching together all that has frayed. Let us share our stories, our fears, our dreams, and find a way to heal the scars that have separated us for far too long. A palpable transformation surged among the villagers, eyes glistening as realization dawned. In the depths of each shared story, they began to see reflections of their own struggles, the bones that had crumbled beneath the weight of animosity, but yearned desperately for renewal. The elderly man spoke once again, his voice a sonorous echo of wisdom. Unity, dear children, arises not from the absence of conflict, but from the conscious choice to traverse it hand in hand. No longer shall we carry the burdens of yore. Today marks the beginning of resurrection. It demands our unity. Crowds merged, voices rising in a chorus of shared experiences. From parents who had lost children to violence, to neighbors who had turned away in anger, they unfolded the layers of pain that had woven them apart. Yet within every tale of grief lay the solemn reveal of hope, illuminating the path toward a new dawn. Together, they began to breathe life into those dry bones foretold in their heritage. And then, amongst the murmur of revelation, came the laugh of a child, a pure, unadulterated sound that rang with innocence and the promise of tomorrow. It was a voice that reminded them what lay at the heart of their struggles. Love. The villagers turned toward the source of the laughter, and the sight of a young girl playing freely reignited the essence of their gathering. "We are brothers and sisters," she said, her face lit with joy, bound by the same earth and dreams. "Let us play together, and in the playing, weave our stories as one." Eli, emboldened by the childish spirit, stepped forward. "She speaks the truth. Within our hearts, there exists the light that cries out for connection. Let us embark on this journey together. Let love be our guide, not the shadows that divide." As the crowd began to chant in unison, a wave surged through them, a promise forged from pain, transformed into determination. Faces that had once borne frowns, now illuminated with warmth as hands reached out, clasping with sincerity. Together, they cast aside the doubts that had taken root, opting instead for the fierce commitment to elevate one another and a fervent display of unity. They formed a circle, hands bound together as one body. The scholar's prophecy was no longer a mere foretelling of doom, but a call to action compelling them to meet the darkness within and without with unwavering strength. A torrent of prayers rose, weak voices now melded into a symphony of faith. The sunlight bathed them in an ethereal glow, the echoes of their collective heartbeats resonating with the rhythms of hope. What began as trembling bones now moved as a living, breathing entity, each participant but a part of the magnificent whole. As the sun reached its zenith, a realization began to settle in the air. Each of their stories, the shadows and fissures, were woven together with purpose. The very act of confronting pain and extending forgiveness would give rise to a new legacy, a heritage of understanding and love that would echo through generations yet to come. And this new dawn, they recognized a profound truth. Every conflict, every prophecy, was merely a reflection of their own hearts and choices. In choosing unity over division, they had breathed life into the prophetic vision, creating a tomorrow where the dry bones no longer lay scattered, but stood together, vibrant and free. In unity, they discovered not merely a survival of the conflict, but a thriving, a community now bound by love, fortified by their willingness to face the challenges ahead. The prophetic vision spoke of darkness that must come to light, and in their hands lay the power to rewrite the outcome. As they stood together, a collective pulse thrumming in sync, the villagers could feel the essence of resurrection taking shape, not as a single event, but as a continuous journey toward becoming a beacon of hope that would illuminate the aisles of despair for all who would wander beneath their gaze. In the heart of Jerusalem, beneath the open sky, the promise once spoken in whispers now resonated loud and clear. They were not the dry bones awaiting resurrection. They were the breath, the living essence, rising anew, forging a serendipitous cycle where faith would forever echo through their lives.